So welcome everyone. My name is Andrew Griggs and I'm Senior Partner at Kreston Reeves and also a Kreston board member. So in terms of what we're looking to cover in the next hour, after a short introduction from myself, we'll then be looking at the case study videos from Kwang from Kreston ACA PAC in Singapore and Mahendra Rustagi in Kreston SNR in India. This will then be followed by a panel discussion, and then we'll be joined by Anna Weston from Tcfd, who will talk a little bit more about the work that Kreston are doing with them. And then I'll just round up with some closing remarks and a lead into the Madrid conference and next steps. So why was I asked to chair today's webinar? It's basically, being a board director, I have an interest in this area on sustainability, carbon net zero, and I'm also heavily involved in our own firm's activities in this area. Kreston want to showcase some of the interesting, varied and pioneering work being done by our firms across the network in the rapidly growing area of ESG and sustainability. So why is this so important to us? Next slide, please. Quite often when we use the words sustainability or ESG, people's first thoughts focus on the need for action against climate change and protecting the planet. However, whilst this forms the E of ESG, we do need to search more deeply. Firms and businesses need to look at developing not only profitable practices with strong governance principles, but also building social capital through the trust and respect of clients, employees, suppliers, and regulators. They need to develop a social license to create oxygen by building purpose into their strategy and plans, as well as demonstrating they exist to benefit multiple stakeholders and society. There is a need for organisations to take a lead. The Kreston firms I speak with around the world talk about the war for talent and need for people. Generation Z, people born or who are in their 20s, expect organisations, and these are not a nice to have purpose and vision in this area. Clients are also demanding help and support, not only in what they should be doing, but how they can be ready for the new reporting environment. The Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, is an international independent standards body that helps organisations understand and communicate their impact on climate change, human rights and corruption. As accountants, we need to be ready for a new reporting environment. These standards are coming. We have seen in Kreston Reeves how rapidly things are changing in this area, and we will talk a little more about our own experiences in this afternoon's session. I'm sure many of you out there are already on your own journey. We would love to hear more about this. For the firms that haven't yet begun it, but want to do so, hopefully this webinar will inspire and excite you, as well as give you some ideas about what it all means and how to begin. So over the next 45 to 50 minutes, we actually are going to cover 2 sessions on sustainability today. There will be another 2 sessions this afternoon, and these are from various firms around the world. In addition, this morning, we'll be having Kreston's new carbon zero partner, Tcfd, who will tell us a little bit more about how they're working with Kreston. We will show a short video which showcases some of the work the firms and Tcfd are doing in this area of sustainability, and then have a panel discussion with the opportunity to questions from the audience. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will have questions in the Q&A function, which Nicoletta and Akshita will be monitoring, and I will invite the panel to answer in due course. So as I said, many of you will be embarking on ESG, but how important is ESG strategy to your firm? And if I could ask you to answer on a scale of 1 to 10, please. So well, this is a great start to the webinar, actually. it's good to see that the majority of people are in the, I suppose, upper half of starting on ESG. Well, that's great. So hopefully we can enhance where you are already with this morning's webinar. Anyway, we're now going to run a short video montage introducing the work done by these firms so you can get a flavour of what they're doing. As I've mentioned, we have 2 sessions today, so the video montage shows all the firms. We have only some of the representatives in this session, with the remainder this afternoon. Both of the sessions are going to be available to watch on demand after today if you want to catch up with anything you have missed. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dan Firmager, an Audit Assistant Manager at Kreston Reeves. Kreston Reeves is a mid-tier professional services firm located in the southeast of the United Kingdom. Our approach to sustainability is very much a journey. It's one we're continuing to learn about. Currently, our sustainability project has led us to be carbon neutral, but with a lot of terminology used in this area, it's worth understanding what this actually means. Carbon neutral is the process of calculating what your carbon emissions are for a year and then paying to offset those emissions using high quality, genuine carbon credits. The other phrase you may hear is net zero. With net zero, you set a science-based strategy to reduce your carbon emissions by 90% by 2050. Carbon neutral is just the beginning for us, and we are conscious that there is more work to be done. That is why our next steps are to work with a group of sustainability experts to help us create a net zero plan and understand what changes we would have to make before committing to the target. In some cases, it has helped to develop a relationship with our clients. We have had more clients ask about our sustainability work to get ideas for their own plans, and they have appreciated knowing they are working with a responsible organisation that puts matters like this at the forefront of their plans. There has been a noticeable change in the way our people are thinking about decisions they make, even down to whether a purchase they are about to make on the firm's behalf is a sustainable option. There is a lot I can say, but I will keep it to 3 pieces of advice. 1. Just start doing something. No matter how small your plans are, you have to start somewhere. 2. I would encourage other firms to do what Kreston Reeves have done for me. They saw I had a passion and have encouraged and mentored me to use that to develop a strategic plan for the firm. 3. Look at other organisations around you and speak to them if you want some advice. Collaboration will be the key to solving the climate crisis. There are some further ahead than others, and that is not something to be disappointed about. It is an opportunity to learn from them and develop your own strategy.
Kreston S&R's ESG initiatives. Kreston S&R, a full-service business consulting firm based in New Delhi, India. Team of over 70 professionals having expertise in the area of business advisory services. And now, much talked about and needed environmental, social and governance services. Kreston S&R has made a good beginning of its ESG journey, which started in 2021. As knowledge partner, Kreston S&R has supported many national and international events on climate change and ESG. One of the biggest such events it supported was the largest ever Summit on Climate Change 2021, held in Delhi in September 2021, an event organized by PhD CCI and Innovation Norway with the support of Government of India. It is also supporting an international summit on climate change scheduled to be held in Bergen, Norway on 30th August 2022. Government of India is seeking greater involvement of the business by introducing regulations. One of the important regulations is mandating top 1,000 companies to issue business responsibility and sustainability report. Seeing the importance of ESG, the corporates have started realizing that going forward for the growth and existence They need to care for each of three elements of ESG, that is environment, social, and governance. Kreston SNR believes in collaborative efforts for better and bigger results. To have a pool of quality resources with deeper expertise in the field of ESG implementation, it has collaborated with a few expert firms. Kreston SNR has over 40 ESG professionals at its command who have delivered over 100 ESG-related assignments successfully across renewable energy, airport, and infrastructure projects. Kreston SNR, a true ESG enabler, is committed to the cause of sustainable and beautiful planet.
Okay, hello everyone. We are Kreston ACA a public accounting firm based in Singapore. In the ESG, the environment, the social and the governance factors, the social factor is the most critical. We focus our HR policy on several aspects. The DEI, in terms of diversity, we have got 3 out of 7 females in our partnership at the partnership level. Also from the staff level, we have got almost equal male and female. In terms of equity, we go out of our way to try and narrow the gaps between the highest paid staff and the lowest paid staff. Inclusion. We are very open in terms of our recruitment. We do not discriminate. That's what I think we try and do in terms of the ESG, the S factor for our practice.
Hi everyone, my name is Kwang. I, together with Paul, we believe in inculcating the consciousness of the environment in our staff. We have organized campaigns. Last year we organized a campaign to promote green. The younger one are very enthusiastic. This year we just started another campaign on refusing the use of single-use plastic, and it has been really successful as well. So I want to urge everyone in the firm to engage your staff via the E. Finally, the G. In terms of governance, we have adopted audit software, and this audit software reduces the use of paper. Almost all of our partners are right now actually certified by ACCA in terms of sustainability. So that is where we are in terms of sustainability, and I hope this will give you a glimpse into what we do, how we embed sustainability within our culture.
So Kreston ITH was established in the early 90s. It's an audit firm based in Nicosia, Cyprus. A mid-tier size firm specializing in audit, tax, advisory, and recently ESG.
Kreston ITH has since its establishment been focusing on its corporate social responsibility. This commitment has organically evolved beyond just corporate philanthropy into the firm recognizing the importance of identifying and managing its ESG impact. Our approach to embedding sustainability is typically a 4-stage process. We start off with a gap analysis to identify data gaps and compliance needs for a client. We then move on to materiality assessment to understand which of these data needs and compliance needs are material. We then move on to developing an ESG strategy that's tailored to the client's needs. And finally, we help clients report on the actions they have taken on ESG.
By promoting ESG services to our clients, we have identified that they have been able to improve their operational efficiencies, resulting in decreased operational cost. They have been able to attract high caliber staff and clients. They have improved their relationship with stakeholders, and they have enhanced their brand value. Much like our clients, by implementing and managing our ESG impact, we have managed to reduce operational cost and improve relationship with our stakeholders.
Our advice for firms first starting out is to identify and understand what your ESG threats are that can hinder the ability of your organization to operate and grow sustainably. For us, sustainability is a journey. It starts with small steps in the right direction and ultimately becomes a way of being.
Wow, so 4 fairly powerful montages and videos shown there. I'd now like to hand over to Kwang to not only reflect on his video, but also share some of his insights with you all. Kwang.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, in terms of reflection, we have shared about our HR policies. Now, in particularly for audit firms or consulting firms like ours, and I think this applies to everyone in the network, we have a very young workforce, and the younger one generally are so much more in tune with ESG than the baby boomers, as studies have shown. So it is very important to embed ESG within the DNA of the organization. Now, ESG will give any organization the social license to operate. The way we see, the way we envision 5 to 10 years down the road, any firm without any ESG edge or anyone without any ESG policies will have problem justifying the purpose of the organization, let alone operate, right? So that is how important ESG is, and because of our edge in terms of ESG, we have been consistently being rated 4 to 4.5 star out of 5 star in Glassdoor. We have no problem with while some of my colleagues while some of my fellow smaller practitioners are struggling, we have no problem in terms of staff retention and staff attraction. We are still managing. In fact, during the COVID period, we are attracting better caliber staff because of the comments that we get from Glassdoor as well, and a lot of and that comes through from the interviews as well. And this is what we understand from the interviewees as well. So this is how important ESG is at this current era. So with that, I thank you. Okay, let me go. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about TCFD. This is a very pertinent topic in Singapore and globally as well, right? So I think this is important enough so that such that everyone should have the basic knowledge of what it is about. Now, just about myself, as you know, I'm a director of Kreston ACA-PAC. I'm also an ISCA council member and I also sit on the ISCA Sustainability and Climate Change Committee. Right, within this committee itself, we talk about various implementation measures on how to route TCFD and S1 and S2, which I'll talk a lot, which I talk a bit about later on. Okay, and this is the agenda. First of all, I will share with the audience on the SGX sustainability reporting requirement, what is in the pipeline for all the companies, the ISSB, S1 and S2, which are going to be implemented late this year or early next year, right? The TCFD framework and the question of, so how now with all these, with these standards, with this reporting requirement, so how do we take it from here? Now, SGX stands for the Singapore Stock Exchange. Now, so Singapore Stock Exchange has since rolled out the sustainability reporting requirement for Singapore listed company ever since 2016. And the strategy of Singapore Stock Exchange is such that it is being rolled out in a phased and in a tiered manner, right? So that would be the strategy of the stock exchange for all the other reporting requirement relating to sustainability as well. So as you can see here, right, the climate reporting disclosure is made mandatory from this year onwards, right? And there are 5 categories of industry which are being scoped in for climate mandatory disclosure. Now, the internal review. So internal review is where the exchange now says that your report, your sustainability reporting process now needs to be audited by the internal, by internal audit, right? Internal audit. So this is actually paving the way for external assurance for sustainability reporting. So as auditors, it will come a time, right, where we will not only need to look at the traditional financials on the balance sheets, P&L, cash flow, and statement of changes of equity. It is time to widen our perspective and look at non-financial numbers around sustainability as well. But diversity is something that the exchange is very passionate about as well. So in terms of diversity, right, they sort of mandate that all companies now have to have a board diversity policies to address gender, the skill, the experience, and other relevant aspects of diversity. Okay, and then the next one is actually on sustainability reporting timeframe in terms of the Tcfd, right? Tcfd is going to be rolled out in a phased and a tiered manner. Now, in terms of internal review and the rest of the guidelines is actually effective 1st of January 2022. Now, so this is where we are in terms of where we are in terms of the implementation of sustainability reporting. Now, as you can see, for 2022, climate reporting is mandatory on a comply or explain basis. Now, this has been very much embedded within our corporate governance framework. It's always on a comply and explain basis, which is very much in line with the British corporate governance framework as well, right? So all companies is subject to its sustainability reporting to internal review by internal audit, right? And all companies now need to implement a board diversity policies. Now, moving forward, as you can see, 2023, it's going Tcfd in terms of climate reporting is going to be mandatory for 3 sectors and 2024 for another 2 sectors, right? So this is the sort of timeline that SGX have so far. Now, in terms of S1 and S2, now I have told a lot of accountants and audience with accounting people that potentially S1 and S2 is really going to change the agenda for accountant, right? It's going to be like when financial instrument FRS 39 for those of us who are accountants was implemented at around 2005, right? That changed the entire basis of accounting from historical cost to fair value. And S1 and S2 potentially is going to do that, right? And now S1 and S2 is going to be implemented either late this year. It looks more like early next year, I think, from the current time frame. S1 is about the general sustainability related financial information which companies have to report. S2 is really on climate related disclosure, which rely heavily on Tcfd. Now, the question is, if I'm an SME now, do I have to be worried? I will say yes, because the measure is now on covered footprints and not on GDP, right? Although the MNC sort of made up the bulk of GDP in any economy, it is the SMEs who contribute the most carbon footprint to any economy. In Singapore, it's about 70%, right, for SME. So the whole plan is really also to roll out the S1 and S2 to SME on a phased and tiered approach, bearing in mind the compliance costs the SME have to bear as well. So this is currently a very hot topic in Singapore, right? The different regulatory bodies are really discussing on how do we roll out S1 and S2 to companies in general in Singapore. Right, moving on now, I'm going to talk about Tcfd framework, and this is the key because this is something which is very pertinent to all of us around the world. Okay, where does this where are we in terms of Tcfd, right? Governments in New Zealand, the United Kingdom and Switzerland were the first to actually mandate that companies are legally bound to disclose against the Tcfd recommendation. Other jurisdictions are expected to follow suit, like Singapore, right? And the map on the actually is on your left, right? Highlights the company that have either mandated or have signaled mandatory reporting requirement. So take note, Tcfd is going to be a very important piece of reporting requirements, and is going to form the basis of climate reporting moving forward. Now, why is this disclosure important, right? Why is climate reporting important, right? Climate change represents a systemic risk that is non-diversifiable, and it is likely to affect the organization's entire portfolio, right? And we're assessing an organization's financial and operating results. Many investors want insights into the governance, risk management context in which such results are achieved. And this is why the government around the world are looking at how to implement TCFD, right? Either in a form of S1 and OS2 or in other ways, right? And in terms of the core elements, right, it consists of 4 main core elements, which is not rocket science, right? It's governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and target, right? So the reporting is going to be around these four elements. 4 core elements. Now with 4 core elements and 11 guidelines, right? And this is how TCFD is going to be rolled out, right? As you can see, there are 4 elements and then there are 11 guidelines here. Now, in terms of industry group, right? And it is known worldwide that these are the industry groups which will be mandated, right? Or will at some point in time be mandated to report on TCFD. Now, the first one is the financial industry group, right? And they are chosen because they may assess the financial impact on climate risk and opportunity to help the pricing of climate-related risk. What this imply is such that is actually not built in, right? The climate risk. The other, the non-financial groups are the energy, the transportation, the materials and buildings, agriculture, forests, and products. Okay. Now, climate-related risk and opportunity, these are essentially the climate risk and opportunity. The key difference between traditional financial statements reporting, right, and climate risk reporting is that climate risk reporting now look at scenario analysis, right? Scenario analysis, if you look at the history, is only a few decades old. Some people do it, some industry do it better than the others, but now accountants will have to learn how to do scenario analysis, right, which is projecting forward. So what makes TCFD different, right? In our view, 3 factors differentiate TCFD recommendations for many existing sustainability and climate reporting framework. Number 1, it emphasizes on financial disclosure in financial reports. Okay, number 2 is the use of scenario analysis, which I've mentioned. And number 3, it is a private-led initiative that represents a well-debated collaborative balance among its members. Okay, and again, these are the recommended disclosure. The evolution of climate reporting framework, again, I have spoke about it. We are moving again away from the traditional backwards looking sustainability focused land and towards a more focused looking financially focused view. So how do I see it? I think this is a really exciting time for accountant, and I think we should embrace it, right, rather than reject it. Now, climate risks are essentially divided into 2 categories. Now, one of it is the physical risk, and the other one is transitional risk. So, in the midst of transitioning to a zero, to a net, what is that called, a zero net carbon environment, we'll be faced with various transition risks if we don't transition enough. Okay, so that is the in a nutshell, that's what it means. I'll not go through the elements, which is governance, strategy, and the rest. But essentially, you know, management will need to really think through, right? How do they embed TCFD into their corporate governance framework? Now, this is the last slide, so not to worry. I will end here. Now, so where are we now? So there are research done by ISCA. ISCA is so a lot of SME. When I present this to SME, the SME asks me, so how? Where do we go from here? Right? There are various studies done, and this is one pertinent study that is done by ISCA, the SMU, Singapore Accounting Commission, and EY. And they are saying that, right, the studies has identified Chief Finance and Sustainability Officer as an emergency suite position. So my advice to SME is invest. Now it's time to invest to get someone who understands sustainability. If that someone don't understand, get someone who has the capacity and the interest to learn. Now as your financial officer, right? And these 2 roles of a CFO and CSO is going to merge in time to come, right? So with that, I thank you, and I hand it back to Andrew.
Fantastic, Kwang. And I'm sorry you had to be cut short, but appreciate you wrapping up there. Obviously, Kwang's contact details are there. The slides will be available afterwards, and obviously if you've got questions, do ask them. I now want to move on to Mahendra Rustagi from Kreston SNR. And Mahendra, if you could sort of go through your slides highlighting any main points perhaps from your montage as you go through. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon, my friend. Before I begin with the presentation, I would like to read out two quotes which I think are quite relevant to the present situation on the climate change. The father of Indian nation, Mahatma Gandhi, perhaps most of us and maybe some of us, you would have heard. He said, "The earth provides enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed." And this is the root cause of the climate change. What we see, what is happening today, because the economy is not on it is based on the greed, not based on the consumption. The consumption is not based on the need, but on the greed. So that is for single person having number of houses, number of the vehicles, and all. So this is all the greed factors which builds in, and end result is on the climate change. The another quote which I think is quite relevant is by Professor James Speth, who was the former administrator, United Nations Development Programs. He said, "I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystems collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation, and we scientists do not know how to do that." So with this background, let me begin with what is the scene with Indian economy. This climate change is a kind of the crisis which the entire world is faced with, and at United Nations Forum, each and every country is participating, and they are looking for some kind of a solution. There have been many agreements and the disagreements, and in the last COP26 held, where India made some major commitments with respect to the 50% of the energy consumption would come from the renewable sources. And there were also quantifiable commitment regarding the carbon emissions. By a particular time, 1 billion units of the carbon emissions will be reduced. And also, the net zero transition, the roadmap was laid, and a deadline of 2070 was given. So with this background, we thought, unless the business is also involved in the entire transition to get into the net zero, then you cannot really achieve. This is where in India, the ESG is born. The whole concept started in 2011. Can we go into the slide? So this concept started in 2011, and we are sitting in 2021. In 2021, top 1,000 listed companies by market capitalization have been mandated to make a disclosure in BRSR, which is the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, which is last 3 years were voluntarily, and enough time was given to the corporates to to learn and to prepare themselves. But starting from this financial year, it has been made mandatory. So that's a very big move the government of India has taken. Now, coming to the ESG trends in India, the starting point in the BRSR report to sensitize the business that better you be also responsible. You behave responsibly, so for the environment and the society is concerned. And the business houses have taken note of it. The trend is, the ESG funds, all the public savings and all, there are a lot of mutual funds, and there is a trend towards the ESG fund. The performance of the ESG fund is, is been seen better than the funds if we compare. ESG investing is the trend all the investment decision by the private equity and the other institutions are being taken based on the ESG score. And its ESG score and the rating is a thing which I just begin with, and on a voluntary basis based on the ESG data available in the public domain, the rating agency have started giving the scores to the corporates. So coming to the framework, the BRSR, which is the reporting framework, the SEBI, which is the capital market regulator, they have the device, and this framework, they capture whole lot of information in the granular form, much in depth and the detail on all the factors E, S, and G, and the entire reporting is designed around 9 business sustainability principles, which we are going to see in the next slides. So these principles, maybe I'll read 1 or 2 of them. The business should conduct and govern themselves with integrity in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and the accountability. So each and every organization, like this principle, there are 9 principles as shown in the slide. Each and every company on E, S, and G, they are supposed to answer some of these specific questions, maybe over 100 the points, both in the quantity and the qualitative manner, and considering these principles. So, these, of course, are, the common, the disclosure, which I think the world over on the environmental, we talk of the carbon emission, we talk of the energy intensity. On the social front, starting from the employees and, the gender ratio, attrition rate, and the child labor, and all those the factors the corporates are supposed to report. And on the governance side, the board independence, voting results, gender pay ratios, and all. So these are the key disclosures the corporates are supposed to make under BRSR. Now, if we look at the key features, it is the BSR that provides interoperability. It is very close to the GRI. In the next slide, we are going to see, how close it is with the other global framework. And the report has all the indicators are supposed to be in the two classes. One is the essential indicators, where the corporate has no choice but to report on those indicators. And there are some indicators which are leadership indicators, where the corporate has a choice whether to report or not. So if we come on to the essential indicators, they are largely on data on R&D and the capital expenditure investment to improve the environmental and the social impacts, and the environmental data on the energy and the emissions, etc. And if we look at the leadership indicators, it seeks the disclosure related to the value chain of the listed companies. It goes beyond the entity. It goes up to the value chain, whether the supplier and the customers. Now, the entire, the 9 principles are also, they mapped with the Sustainable Development Goals, which at United Nations, the Paris Agreement, the 17 SDGs. So all the 9 principles are tagged to the SDGs. Like in case of the principle 1, it is tagged to SDG 17, which is on the partnership to achieve goals. And like all the 9 principles, we have, the mapping done with all the 17 SDGs. Now, BRSR, it overlaps with the other reporting standards, like with the GRI, it overlaps up to 97%. They are at the essential metrics, at the GRI level, it is 95%. And at overall, the indicators, including the leadership indicators, it goes up to 91. So, there are few things, the number of indicators are 104, the 62 are the essential indicator, and the 42 are the leadership indicators. And now, with my presentation, I want to conclude like this, that a good ESG beginning is made in India, the 5th largest economy in the world and 2nd largest in terms of the population. So a good beginning is made. The corporates are serious on ESG integration with their business. Many more companies are expected to be covered for ESG disclosure under the government regulations. And BRSR is a comprehensive framework for ESG reporting. ESG rating and score will be the norm of the investment and the lending decisions, like what we see for external credit rating for the debts presently. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mahendra. And again, lots of information that's there. So I'd like to just say thank you again to Kwang and Mahendra for their presentations. We now move into the questions and answers session, where we've probably only got about just under 10 minutes to go. But I have had a couple of questions in. So I think one of the things I'd just like to start with is how has sustainability ESG been received by your clients and your people? Mahendra, I'm conscious actually that the journey in India has been going for sort of 11 years. So perhaps that's longer in your country than perhaps in other parts of the world. But can I start with you? How do you think it's been received by clients and people?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. In India, the large corporates, holistically, they want to implement ESG. It is not because of the regulations, but I think it's a welcoming move. They have realized that it's not only an obligation, which is by the statute, by the government, but for their own survival and the growth. They cannot grow. They cannot have a sustained growth unless they go for integration of ESG in their business. But so far as the mid-size organizations are concerned, they still lack the understanding. And this is where the firm like ours, we are busy in creating more and more awareness about it, that what are the benefits. And, you know, it's like they do not know what is the size of the lion. They have not seen the lion. And, you know, how would it look like and how massive it is, how complicated it is, whether it would have the impact, whether it is going to cost. So this is where the firm like ours in the Kreston SNR, we are helping the clients to understand the benefits of this, and we are helping and do hand-holding to have the ESG integrated with their business.
I mean, just before I move on to Kwang, just listening to what you said, Mahendra, it sounds as though businesses in India have embraced the fact that sustainability is an important part of an organization's raison d'etre or need to be there, as well as profitability, which I think we're in this sort of profit and sustainability leading to purpose for an organization, which is interesting to hear. But let me turn to Kwang. So Kwang, your views on how has sustainability and ESG been received by your clients and people?
Well, when I started in 2016, when SGX has just rolled out the sustainability reporting requirement, I go around talking to the board of directors about sustainability. 5 years ago, I received very much a cold shoulder, right? At that time, people doesn't really understand what sustainability is all about. Now, 5 years down the road, we are at a point whereby I think most corporate have accepted the need to do something for the environment and the importance of sustainability. So now we are very much at the stage whereby we have accept and we are moving to adoption, right? What are the measures that we can adopt so that we can move to net zero by the middle of this century? So this is where we are now. There are costs involved, and I think Singapore government has been a very progressive one. Our carbon tax is going to raise from a minimum now, I think it's about $5 to about $50 to $80 in 5 to 10 years to come, right? So we are looking at this repertoire of measures that we have in order to move the entire economy to decarbonize the Singapore economy to net zero. So this is where we are now.
Okay, fantastic. I'm conscious I've only got another sort of 3 or 4 minutes on Q&A. So I just want to pick up on one of the other questions. I don't think we'll have time for both of them. Given the poll survey here that many firms already seem to be well on this journey of sustainability, what challenges do you think exist for the wider sector in this area? And perhaps, Mahendra, if I could come back to you.
Yeah. See, the major challenge is the lack of awareness. The people do not understand. They still see, maybe, as I said, maybe apart from the larger, the corporates, which have realized and they are already on the ESG journey, but it covers only the part of it. But the majority of the corporates, which are, the mid to smaller size, the lack of awareness, and another biggest challenge is the capacity building, the availability of the professional, because I think it is new. There are not too many courses, the professional courses, which the trains about the on ESG and the sustainability. However, the private coaching and the private courses have started, and it has picked up reasonably well in last 2 years, I must say. So because of the demand and the supply, definitely the demand is far more in India, and the supply maybe in due course of time, maybe in a couple of months or years time, perhaps it could be matching. So there is a pressure on even the availability of the trained resources. See, the bigger challenge is the large corporates. They generally settle with only the top, the 4 consulting firms like EY, the PwC, and KPMG, etc. See, the firms which are the mid-size and they have developed the core strategy and all. So maybe because it's a mandate from their headquarters of the large MNCs, the companies over here, that you have to, like in case of audit and other professional assignment, for ESG also at times, if it is a multinational company is having the large presence in India, so they would have the mandate from their corporate office that it means you. So these are some of the challenges which what I see is being faced in India.
Okay, thank you, Mahendra. That's great. Kwang, I want to ask you a very slightly different question, just to wrap up on the question and answer session. For a firm that's just starting out on their journey, are there any sort of special guidances or tips or agencies that you would recommend?
Okay, the SGX, the Singapore Stock Exchange, has come out with the 11 key ESG factors that they seen it as common among all the issuers or financial reporters. So my recommendation is always reflect on the 11, and the 11 is really around social, water usage, the more generic one. So start on the 11. ESG factors, right? Just search SGX and 11 ESG factors. I think you get a recommendation. The Singapore government haven't made that mandatory. It's just a guidance. Now, the Singapore government the key is actually not the bigger enterprise, but the smaller enterprise. The smaller enterprise, like the SME, they will definitely find challenge because first of all, there's a lack of the right talent, I think so. And I'm also an advocate that they need help. The SME actually need help in terms of sustainability reporting because they can't afford the compliance costs at this stage. So I'm a big advocate for that some sort of government assistance should be available. Some sort of government assistance should be available for the smaller enterprise. If we really want to move to net zero, because remember, it's about carbon footprints, is not about GDP, and the SME actually employ 60 to 70% of the workforce. I think generally across the board, right? So I'm a big advocate for that. But if you need somewhere to start, I don't know about what's happening in UK, but in Singapore, we have the 11 ESG factors, which is common to all. I always tell SME to look at that and start reporting on that. Now, the key about ESG is no one expect you to get it right the first time, right? Is to get you started, right? So that you are more aware, and over time you improve. The consciousness improve, and therefore the quality of the reporting improve, and that will also mean that we are moving very well towards the net zero carbon emission agenda. So that's my answer to your question, Andrew.
Fantastic, Kwang. And I'm going to have to wrap up the questions and answers there. I do have a couple more, but unfortunately I'm running out of time. But thank you both very, very much for your presentations and insight into sustainability and ESG. If I can just move on now, as I mentioned earlier, Kreston Global, as part of their sustainability journey, have acquired a forest with Treedom to contribute towards offsetting the carbon made by the Madrid conference. And I'd just like to introduce Anna from Treedom, just to talk a little bit about what that means. Anna.
Thank you very much. I'm Anna. I'm here joining from Treedom, and I'm here to talk you through we are one of Kreston's new sustainability partners. We're delighted to be that. So thank you so much for having me. I'm here to talk you through, firstly, what Treedom is, how we work as a social business, but then more relevant to you guys today is kind of how we work with companies in general, and then our blossoming partnership with Kreston Global in particular. So have we got my slides ready? I think there we are. Beautiful. Thank you. As you can see from my first slide here, we are Treedom and we're here to green the planet, which is our slogan. And we do so by planting trees, which all sounds fairly simple. I'm going to talk you through a few of the specific ways we work. We like to say that we don't just plant trees, we grow them. And we do so by planting them in something called agroforestry systems. So as you may guess, this process combines agriculture and forestry. We want to ensure trees become valuable, productive members of their communities, not just, the plants that people coexist with. They really do cohabit in that sense. We know that if trees are productive and valuable and contributing to life as humans, they're much more likely to stay in the ground, which is, of course, what we all want for the long term. And just for context, because it's always everybody's first question, we plant in communities across the world. We plant in Asia, in Nepal and Thailand. We plant in Central and Southern America, in Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Haiti. And we plant in Africa, in Cameroon, Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania, Madagascar, and Ghana. We're constantly adding projects as we go and looking to plant all over the world. So quickly, I'm going to talk you through what our projects deliver. If we can go on to that next slide. There we are. Perfect. Thank you. So as I said, we grow trees into members of the community. I'm sure you will have all seen lots of these. They've been discussed already today, but these are the some of the Sustainable Development Goals as set out by the UN. These are to try and encourage individuals, companies to approach development in a very sustained and multifaceted way. And at Treedom, we're very happy that our projects contribute to an incredible 10 of the 17 that they've established, which of course are recognised internationally. And you'll see them here, the 10 that we contribute to. So besides what you would normally expect from tree planting, the local and global environmental benefit like the carbon drawdown and improving soil fertility and actually soil stability with the roots, improving water runoff so that the ground stays nourished as opposed to floods when there's no trees. We also protect lots of local biodiversity. But actually, as you'll see from the top row of those SDGs here, we also have a huge social focus within our projects. So we achieve those through planting many fruit and crop trees. Those fruits and other crops can quite simply feed the families and the communities that we work with, but also those fruits and crops can be harvested and sold at market. So we reduce hunger in this sense, but we also reduce poverty and inequalities in the same time. There are also dozens of sustained year-round employment opportunities that are found within agroforestry systems. Because there's so many different species, you have harvests at different points throughout the year, you have saplings at different points throughout the year. Planting schedules will change depending on species. So we make sure that those employment opportunities aren't peaking at one point in the year and then there's nothing for anybody to do in another month. Rather, the communities stay employed year-round. So that's not even benefiting only the farmers, but also their wider communities as they seek support to promote those projects and establish them further, which improves the entire community's financial freedom as well. We also don't ever just sort of enter a country, say, right, we know what's best, we're going to plant these trees and then leave. We work in a very, very long-term way with those communities. We provide, we establish consultation processes with them to understand what they need, and then we provide long-term education and skills-based training to those people to make sure that they are able to nurture those trees to adulthood, to understand what their soil needs. We empower them to really have the knowledge and skills to be the caretakers of those trees themselves. And we actually contract that they care for those trees for a minimum 10 years, which is one of the longest in the industry. We know that by that point they will be mature and productive, so they have a very, very good chance of staying in the ground for their entire lifespan. So we're very happy to say that we contribute to those 10 SDGs, but actually that is only to give our trees the best shot at growing rather than just being planted. On to our next slide. So how do we make this relevant for companies and individuals? Because of course, our trees are planted in one country, but many of our supporters, whether individuals. So this is an example of something called a tree diary. Treedom is the first platform where every single one of our trees is visible online via its own tree diary, and that's what you see here. It has a unique picture, geo-coordinates, local uses, benefits for the planet, and stories from the farmers. So this adds transparency, but actually it also means that these tree pages can be gifted and shared. If you go on to my next slide, we have many individual users, over 1 million now, who can give a gift to a loved one. And if you go to my next slide, I'll talk you through how those businesses can work with us. Businesses come to us for all sorts of different reasons. Kreston Global is one of them, thankfully. All of our projects contribute to CSR, but also trees can be gifted for event gifting, much like this webinar. For employer engagement, you could gift trees for HR purposes or for reward and recognition, or for marketing campaigns and adding a credible line to that. So we work with nearly 10,000, we're getting so close, 10,000 companies at the moment. And this is the area that me and my team work in. If you go to my next slide, I will just talk you through where we're at with Kreston in particular. So we have planted on a 3-year contract, which is fantastic. We've planted 200 trees per year. We initially started to celebrate the EMEA and World Conference this year. As you can see, even that very small commitment has absorbed nearly 50,000 kilos of CO2, which is fantastic. What we are here to talk about is the potential Kreston Global have. Lots of you have talked about, it is super difficult to get started, to know where to begin. There's 1,000 different things you should be measuring against and improving on. With Treedom, what we do is work with companies to just begin that journey. We work with companies on every stage of their journey. And we know that just by doing something good, you can begin on that journey while you also establish other things that the company needs to improve on. So I've just put some anticipated numbers there. I know my time's run out, but we started small, but if every firm within the global network planted the same amount, we could actually reach 32,000 trees, absorbing 8 million kilos of CO2 and supporting 2,000 farmers. So here to inspire you and to, give you a little snippet of what we do, but please do get in touch if anybody wants to grow that impact. We love planting more trees and we love working with companies to achieve their goals. So thank you very much for having me.
Now that's fantastic, and it's wonderful to hear your passion coming through in your presentation. Again, thank you to Anna and Kwang and Mahendra for their presentations. I'm conscious that we are at 10 o'clock, but for those of you still on the line, we do have one other quick poll. If you wouldn't mind answering that, so that after today's seminar, are you more or less likely to be looking at sustainability and ESG? And while Nicolette is just collating those replies, we'll show the results on the screen. Fantastic. It looks like a similar set of results to where we started, but the positive impact is that people have really appreciated the panelists' comments today and are likely to be doing more with ESG going forward. So that's great news. So I'd like to bring this webinar to a close, say thank you again to our panelists and also you as the audience for listening today. The session will be available for viewing on Community, and there is a second session later in the day. We hope many of you will be coming to the World Conference in Madrid next month, and on the Friday afternoon there will be a session on sustainability in terms of why it's integral to our purpose and learning from our member firms on how to develop a sustainable strategy. So I very much hope that following Madrid conference, there will be an appetite to develop this further within the Kreston Global Network as well. So once again, thank you all very much, panelists and audience, for joining today. Goodbye.